Hello, good evening, everyone. Well, morning, afternoon. I don't know when you're gonna be watching this. First of all, I have to apologize in advance. My voice is gonna be a little bit runny, a little bit stuffy because I've been sick this whole week, and I really want to start getting this video. Well, these videos, because it's gonna be multiple videos. I want to get these videos out starting in April. So unfortunately, I have to record it with a little bit of a stuffy noise, stuffy voice. I will try my best though not to make it too unpleasant. So I thought I would remake my tier lists, starting with PotD, because my tier, a lot has changed over the... Wow, it's been like, what, 2 years now? A lot has changed over these 2 years, and I think that it deserves to like redo the tier list and, like explain again what is strong, what is weak. Talk about the new things also, like the new things that we discovered and that are just different now. So you'll see that there's some things that remain the same. There's some things that switched around. There's some very surprising things that like went way up or way down as well. Like nothing has been specifically buffed or nerfed for Deep Dungeon. It's more like things just affect the jobs in Deep Dungeon and like in ways that are not expected. So anyway, I will begin with the Machinist right away. So well, unsurprisingly, Machinist is still as powerful as it was before. I mean, what doesn't it have? Is that it has great damage, great mobility, great CC, burst that is also like cooldown based mostly. So like I wish I could just go on and on about Machinist, but it's still amazing. I would say there's stuff that's really strong nowadays, so I don't know if I would put Machinist, in like, amazing top 1. Like maybe it'd be a little between amazing and strong, because like you can get screwed pretty hard by debuffs on this job. But I think it still deserves to be amazing. Like it's just an amazing jump all around. There's even something new that we discovered with range GPS that I'm going to talk about more later. But this doesn't really affect Machinist specifically, so I'm not going to mention it right now. But yeah, so we're starting off with one of the best already. Now let's talk about Bard. So Bard, the issues with Bard were always that you have much lower damage than Machinist. So like you have all the CC, you have like the mobility, but then your damage is just way lower than Machinist. So that makes it a little weaker than Machinist overall, because like it's not like you're lacking damage that much on Bard. It's just that it has other issues. Specifically 180 is like really hard on Bard. So hard that in my old playlist I put it quite low. However, new amazing tech has been found for range GPS. So I'll try and explain it. It's going to be a little bit of a long explanation, but I'll try to explain it. So basically, with this in mind, it's become a lot like more reliable, and your damage output just skyrocketed, right? So like something like Behemoth, it is simply not an issue on Bard anymore. And this makes Bard significantly stronger, or like I should say significantly higher than it was before. It's still weaker than Machinist, just because its raw damage output isn't like the same. Plus, its actual rotation is a little more, I'd say, hard to execute properly. So it's not as strong, but I would say it's strong. I would say because of this whole like range GPS meta we found, it's much stronger than it was before. So I think strong is a fair place to put it. Though, like at the end of the video, I'll just go over all the jobs real quick and see like if I think they're properly sorted. But for the moment, I'll put it in strong. So Dancer is very similar to Bard in a way, because it's kind of the same issue. It's kind of like Machinist versus Bard is kind of the same as as Machinist versus Dancer. It's like the same strength, except it's just way weaker for its damage. But then the weak damage is not a big issue. But Dancer, like Bard, used to have a very difficult 180 push, but now because of what I just talked about, I'm not going to explain again, because there's no need to. I don't want to bore you guys with it, the explanation over and over. But because of the new tag, the 180 on Dancer is just way better now. Like the 180 on Dancer used to be very tight. Even if you did everything properly, you would kill the boss within 1 GCD unless you were lucky. But now it's not an issue anymore. I wouldn't say it's free, but it's about as easy as melee DPS have it now for 180. So that's just that's just way better. Something Dancer has got going for it though is that it has some pretty big AoEs, which you might think is a bad thing, but then you also have dashes that lets you dash around, which means that it's not really an issue. You can pull multiple monsters, like you can pull 5, 6 monsters even as high as the 190s. And as long as you just keep dashing around the room, nothing's gonna reach you. So this lets you do a little bit of AoE pulling, which kind of makes your damage more competitive than Bard. Because Bard does not have a dash. Well, it has a bad dash, but the Dancer has good dashes. So for this reason, I would say it's like a little better than Bard. Like, I'd say Dancer is a true, like, between amazing, between strong, with all of this in mind. Since you can pull so many things and just avoid them, plus 180 is so trivialized with the new tech. I wouldn't say it's amazing, though, because, like, it does require more work than Machinist, plus, like, you need to do, like, big AoE pulls just to make up the lack of damage. But it's strong, right? Like, I'd say Bard is a definitive strong. Dancer is like a definitive between amazing and strong, but we don't have a way to put it between, so I'll put it in strong for now. So that's it for the range GPS. So as you can see, there's already big changes there because, like, there's things that just aren't, like, there's just new things we found, and it's just, it really shifts everything over, right? Like, just shift our whole perception. So now we're gonna go for casters. I already ordered them, but by the way, at the bottom in the order I'm going to talk about them, so I'm just going from left to right. So yes, so sorry, I wrote some notes this time so I don't forget important things. So Summoner, so the thing, Summoner has high burst, definitely, cooldown based burst. It has good damage, good DPS, let's call it. However, summons are really dumb and they get stuck quite often, so it's not rare for you to just use a summon and it gets stuck. It doesn't do its damage. It cuts into your damage a lot, and it makes it so you have to play with just your summons in mind, right? You also get punched all the time, which is a big downside on Summoner, because the only way to heal yourself is through a very weak physics, so it's just like a massive downside. In my opinion, the damage you do does not make up for the basically squishiness and getting punched all the time, and also have to babysit your summons all the time. You also have no dash, so it's not like that Dancer where you can just pull the, like, you know, a whole room and just run around and survive. So, you know, like, Summoner has good damage, but because of these downsides, I'm not sure if I'm ready to say that it's, I wouldn't say it's strong, and also I wouldn't say it's decent. I wouldn't say it's subpar though. Like, I don't think the damage is quite competitive. It's just the other things don't really make up for the damage. So I would say it's pretty deserving of average. You know, middle of the pack, quite squishy, but quite good damage. Doesn't deal with mimics at all. Middle of the pack, and the whole babysitting is also quite annoying. I'd say average is, it's pretty fair, in my opinion. You may have noticed I'm trying to go a little faster between the jobs, because I don't want this to be like a, you know, 2-hour tier list like I usually make them. I want this to be short and concise, because keep in mind I'm gonna remake all 3, so we really gotta highlight the good points and just leave it at that, you know. POTD, like, of course POTD, like, you can clear with, I wouldn't really try to clear with, say, like, your first clear. I wouldn't really go for sub or below, but so anything that's like average or higher, I would say you can give it a shot as your first clear. Alright, so Red Mage. So Red Mage is kind of like Summoner. I know it doesn't look like it, but you actually have quite good burst, quite good damage. Pretty similar to Summoner, honestly, in its damage. Like, yeah, you have a resource to build up, but it's not that big of a deal. It just kind of naturally builds itself. You do have the issue with pots, where you just have to deal with it, which sucks. But you have heal, a heal to offset it, and also your heal kind of makes up for your squishiness. So this already makes Red Mage, you know, better than Summoner straight up. You have amazing dashes on Red Mage, very reliable dash in, dash out, will save you a lot of damage. And also, I feel like we were kind of At least personally, I feel like I was kind of playing red mage wrong. I didn't really realize it, but if you hard cast, like, you know, whenever you're about to fight a monster, like usually you're just going to do like jolt ver arrow, jolt ver stone, right? You're just going to alternate, opening with jolt. But I realized if you open every fight with the 5-second hard cast instead of jolt, you just do so much more damage on every monster, and it's like a huge boon when you're fighting like tough monsters. It just lets you kill them before they become an issue. And then if they do become an issue, you don't get to live through the issue part so much, and you can heal yourself. Really good. Like, it's quite mobile. Yeah, like, yeah, you have to cast, but you don't have to cast too much because you're constantly proccing that dual cast. You got sleep. Well, you know, like, summoner has sleep too, but I feel like sleep is even better on Remedy because you can heal yourself. It is, like... It is quite good. It's definitely a lead above summoner. I'm trying to think if it's, like, maybe 2 entire tiers above summoner. Like, would I say that I have... Considering the 180 push is kind of a joke now on all the range GPS, like, would I say, because Red Mage doesn't have a 180 push, that's also a nice bonus. I feel like there's a lot of in-betweens, right? I feel like it's kind of in-between strong and decent, but I think I'll put in strong for now. I feel like it's pretty close. Pretty damn close to these two, you know? Like I said, Dancer felt like it was in between, and then Bard felt there. Red Mage maybe feels a little in between, but I think it's fair to put it there. So let's put it there. All right, Black Mage. So Black Mage, we had it all around for Black Mage. So let me explain to you. Black Mage, amazing damage. I think we can't really hard against that, right? Like, just amazing damage. Everything's blowing up, fire everywhere, just like insane damage. Like ice, not so much, but everything else, yeah. So Black Mage is hard to move. Like, the big thing with Black Mage is, of course, it's very hard to just move when you're fighting, which means you're kind of taking a beating. But it turns out, if you abuse Fire 1 and Thunder procs, as in you just kind of like you still use F4 whenever you can, but if you just kind of use F1 and Thunder, like, primarily, you might as well be a range GPS because you're constantly able to move. And I feel like that kind of offsets the whole mobility issue that Black Mage used to have. Not to say that anything changed, right? It's more of a mindset thing. It's just the way we play, well, I play Black Mage has really evolved, and now I feel like it just doesn't really have the mobility issue so much, as long as you abuse F1 and Thunder procs, right? So, like, yeah, you still get potched, but the fact that you're so mobile and that your damage is, like, quite insane, like way higher than Summoner, way higher than Red Mage, like maybe even higher than Machinist. In fact, I'd say it's even higher than Machinist. It's just, like, really good damage, which makes 180 also very easy on Black Mage. And then the thing that made me kind of be harsh towards Black Mage before was that 190 is very hard. Like, it was very hard to do 190 on Black Mage because you just melt. And not, even if you like I did say you could be maybe 90% mobile now, but like that 10% is still holding you back. However, I discovered that apparently, well, not apparently, like if you check out right now your tooltip on Sharpcast, you may have noticed that if you do Sharpcast and then you do skate, I don't know you call it, you know, that one move that is kind of weak but you can do it when you're moving, it gets boosted by Sharpcast, and it actually makes the move quite powerful. So if you become like on 190, and I guess any monsters, I just feel like though it's mostly useful against the very hard monsters and 190. I figured out if you do it on 190, it kind of makes the fight into a joke. Like, you basically become a skate mage. Let's call it a skate mage because it's kind of funny to say. Like, you just become a Sharpcast skate mage. You will, like, do 190 no problem. Anything really hard like a Flood Dragon, like a Course, even without Steel, you can trivialize these, like, super, like, they'll become a joke. As long as you just spam that skate and that Sharpcast combination, you will melt everything. And I feel like that has really elevated Black Mage. Like, Black Mage was something I would maybe put in average or subpar before, maybe even bad. I don't remember, but the fact that your mobility is just hidden behind this whole, like, abusing your prot, and the skate, man, I'll never know how to say that word, but like, you know, the skate move is so strong when you use it with sharp cast, which means 190, which used to be really difficult, is now kind of a joke on Black Mage. I feel like this means Black Mage is it's about as good as Machinist, man. Like, you gotta trust me on this. After having experienced it, I think it's just, it's nuts. It's bonkers. The damage is just so high. Like, yeah, you're squishy. Like, you basically like summoner, you have a shield, right? And like, yeah, you deal with pots, but your damage is so freaking high, it doesn't even matter. Like, there's so many mimics you're just gonna kill before they even get the pot off on you. And then whenever you get a kite, then you just kite like a range GPS. It deserves being amazing. Pretty damn close to Machinist. Like, maybe even better than Machinist. Because like Machinist, I feel like was maybe a little, you know, like 1/3 of the way in the strong, but Black Mage is an easy amazing. So yeah, they're definitely a very viable job. Do your first clear run now. Right, so that's it for the range. Sorry, for the casters. Now let's go for the tanks. It's kind of weird, huh? I should have maybe done melee DPS next and then tank healer, but that's just the order I came up with. Alright, so Paladin was changed. Was quote-unquote recently buff. Maybe not so recently now, but a few months ago. So basically they made Drawing Blade not being a dot anymore. Instead, it now does massive damage. More than enough makes up for the lack of dot. Like, basically the dot was pretty weak, and now you just do like a massive amount of burst damage every time it's up. I believe it's a 30-second cooldown. This kind of made the 180 push very simple. It used to be a very difficult push on Paladin, but now it's become a much simpler push. Also, I didn't really talk about it. I'm not going to repeat it for everything, but tanks, you know, the way tanks are in PotD is, you know, they're kind of they're kind of tanky. So monsters are not as bad to fight. They usually have a bottleneck on 180, and also you have to manage your time a little better. But these are not big issues in PotD, in my opinion. I don't think managing your time in PotD is that hard. So they're effectively, I see them as like tanky DPS with bad damage, right? That's kind of the way I play them. So anyway, yeah, much simpler 180 push because Drawing Blade just does a truckload of damage now. It's so much better than when it used to be a dot, man. Like, they really, I mean, of course they're not balancing for a little 60, but it's kind of crazy to see the buffs they are doing nowadays. So yeah, Clemency is also very strong on nobility floors. Basically lets you ignore the debuff and just heal yourself through pretty much every encounter. Maybe not a Flood Dragon, but that's about it. Invuln, and lastly the Invuln, because every tank has an Invuln. Invuln for Paladin is very strong, because of course makes you Invuln. Like, really, it means you Invuln straight up. Has a very long cooldown, but I think the fact that it's such a strong Invuln makes up for the long cooldown. I'd say the only thing I have to say about Paladin is your AoE is a little bit lacking, but it's kind of whatever, because Drawing Blade just makes your single target damage so good now. It's just like not really worth doing AoE pull unless you're doing score runs, but this is not a score run guide tier list. Sorry, this is a clearing tier list. So honestly, I don't know. Like, strong, it's pretty strong, but like maybe not as much as Red Mage, Dancer, and Bard. Like, maybe more of a decent, like, you know, in between decent and strong. I'll put it decent for now, and I'll see if I change my mind. So, Dark Knight. Now, Dark Knight has actually changed quite a lot since I made my last tier list. So it has like a new Living Dead, and I guess that's the big change. So the new Living Dead, sorry, it's kind of underwhelming. I think it's like, it's pretty bad, maybe even worse than the old one. Because the thing is, like, when it procs, you barely have time to heal yourself. So it's just kind of like you use it and then you die. You're gonna die shortly after. I don't really see that as that, you know, like it's a bad Invuln. Like, maybe the worst Invuln. Like, yeah, you can heal yourself sometimes if you're doing like an AoE pull, but single target, there's no way, right? Also, the other thing that kind of blows with Dark Knight is your damage is quite low compared to the other tanks. And it means you have to carry Eaters with you to maximize your weak burst. So because your burst uses mana on Dark Knight, so you have to carry the, you know, the potion that gives you mana when you drink it. So you constantly have to chug these during your pulls, which locks you out of your regen, which is okay, I guess. But it is kind of sad that you have to do this whole thing just to do, like, you know, like slightly better damage compared to the other tanks. And like I said, losing your potion is not too bad because you're a tank, and Dark Knight is very tanky, has a lot of defensives. But this kind of makes Abyssal Drain like bad as well. That's the move that heals you when you use it, because it just heals so much. Like, you're gonna use Abyssal Drain while you're fighting something, it's gonna heal you for, like, you know, like, I don't know, like 80% of your health. Which means you have to keep it for your invuln as well. But then it's such a powerful heal, but then you don't really need a powerful heal on Dark Knight. You need more damage, right? So I think this, you know, it's kind of this whole job is just working against itself. It's like it's a little too, well, not a little, it's like way too much in the tanky. It's built too much to be tanky, but not built enough to do good damage. And yeah, like I said, like, you can kind of get around bad single target damage by doing big AoE pulls, but then if you do AoE pulls on Dark Knight with your low damage, it means the pulls are really long. And because the pulls are long, you're not regenerating mana outside of combat because you're in combat. So it's again working against itself. And you know, like, with all of this in mind, which already makes Dark Knight kind of bad, it also has the hardest tank 180 because of the whole living dead situation, right? Like, it's a very difficult push where you have to, like, you know, like, coordinate all your cooldowns. You make sure your regen potion is used at specific times, because you need to make sure you heal yourself with living dead and everything. So you know, like, it's a lot to say. It's not good, dude. Like, is it anywhere near Summoner? No. Like even subpar, I feel like it's being generous, right? Like, you know, I hope no one's gonna, I hope there's no Dark Knight fanatic there that's really going to dislike this this judgment I'm running on Dark Knight, but it's kinda bad, man. Like, it's just kinda bad. So I'll put it there for now. Alright, but now let's talk about something that's not so bad. Let me just take a sip of this. So, Gunbreaker. Gunbreaker, to no one's surprise, does really insane damage compared to the other tanks. I mean, you don't even need to look at the numbers, right? Like, you just look at the animations and everything. It's just, everything's blowing up. Like, you know, whoosh, whoosh, slash. It just, like, everything's blowing up, dude. Like, there's no contest. This is the highest damage tank by far. Maybe even 50% more damage than the other tanks. Like, it's kind of like playing a DPS. Maybe not as strong as Black Mage, but, like, it's kind of playing like, you know, an average DPS, but you're really tanky as well. This makes 180 a joke because you just kill it before it's even going to kill you. Now, it's always quite bad, like Dark Knight, but then it doesn't really matter because your single target is just so good that you have no reason to AoE for clear. And again, its defensives are not that good. So you think it's a bad job because it's like AoE is bad, defensives are bad, but then you do so much damage and you're already like, you're inherently tankier than a DPS just because you are the tank role. Not to mention, I didn't mention it, but like the tanks don't have to deal with bots too. So like, even though your defensives are bad and your AoE is bad, your damage is so strong. Like, just the fact that your explosions are just ripping apart everything is just so good. It's like, it's a whole league of itself for the tanks, right? It's not even, I praise the Paladin so much, but it's like, it's just way better than like any other tank that I can think of. And I know what you're gonna say. Even Warrior? Well, let me tell you about Warrior. So Warrior, of course, can't compete with Gunbreaker's damage whatsoever. Like, it just has no explosions built into its kit, so it can't. It just can't, like, output the same amount of damage. Run Tuition, it is, like, unreliable, because the thing with Run Tuition is when you use it, the healing is the healing isn't instant. It's like, it's delayed depending on what ability you use, and that means it's kind of hard to reliably, like, well, reliably rely on the healing from raw intuition. Like, it's kind of a troublesome, kind of a difficult skill to use. Like, it just needs a lot. You need to be a very good warrior to be able to use raw intuition and get the healing off it. So that kind of like brings it down a notch for me. Even though it's a great heal, it's just very hard to use. It's kind of like warriors kind of average at everything, right? It's like average damage for a tank, average survivability, kind of a clunky heal to use. It's quite a difficult job, I would say. All of this in turn makes the 180 push fairly difficult because you don't really have anything going on for you. Like, your healing is your damage is and then you don't really have like good tools to deal with the push. And also, it's in Vuln. Although I wouldn't say it's as bad as Living Dead, it's kind of bad. It's kind of a bad invuln because you don't have a... Like, the way the invuln works on Warrior is that you press a button and you're invuln for 10 seconds. But damage still takes on you. It's just you can't be brought below 1 HP, but you still get damage during the whole invuln. So it's kind of bad because then you basically have to use your invuln, and then you have to find a way within these 10 seconds to heal yourself with raw intuition. And the skill, like, raw intuition is so difficult to use properly that it's like you feel quite pressured, right? Like, you use your invuln, and then you got like 10 seconds to use raw intuition, and then it's just like you just don't have time to do it. Like, it's too much trouble, it's too much effort to do it, too difficult. So for this reason, and like yeah, the cooldown is low for the invuln, but the invuln's so bad I don't really think it makes up for it. So I wouldn't say it's as bad as Dark Knight. It's definitely not Summoner's tier. Like, Summoner is just, middle of the pack, and it's a good way to base my choices, right? To look at Summoner, and that it's definitely not... It's definitely better than Dark Knight, but it's definitely not as good as Summoner. So I think subpar is a fair place to put this this warrior. Okay, so we can finally move on to the melee DPS. These ones have a lot of things going on for them. A lot of weird things as well that we didn't really understand the first time. Well, that I didn't really understand the first time the main materialist. So Monk has reward so many times. I don't even I don't even like know everything about it every time I make a tier list because it's just so different every time. I would say one thing about Monk though. One of its biggest downside used to be that you run into traps all the time. But it turns out that if you memorize all the traps, the job just becomes way more simple. And like, I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, "I'll memorize the traps." Are you crazy? But it's not that bad, right? Like, you've got about I think it's about 400 positions to remember for each different set. So like, for example, 151 to 200 is like one set, and then like the cavern layout would be a different set and everything. So like, all in all, you have to memorize, I don't know, for your entire run, maybe only 3,000 trap placements. And because it's not like, after you've done a few runs, you'll be able to easily memorize all the trap placements. So after you've got a few runs, like, of practice, basically, you can just snake yourself through every room. You don't really have to worry about the traps, which kind of makes the whole downside of Monk, where you don't have a range pull move, pointless. Like, it makes it irrelevant because you can just go in the rooms and pull whatever you want. And now Monk has great damage, partly because they reward Monk, so it's just really good damage now. Also has a very simple rotation, probably one of the simplest jobs to play. Like, that rotation basically plays for itself. You don't really have to keep track of anything. You just, just press the buttons when they light up, and it just flows beautifully. So because of the fact that you can easily memorize all the traps, you have great damage, and you have a simple rotation. This job's already good, but there's even more. Because Monk has like a built-in, it's like a threat, right? Like, you have a built-in thing where you attack faster than the other jobs. And because you attack so fast on Monk, there's actually a tech you can do where if you fight a monster, you can try right now, by the way. Like, if you're in the game right now, you can, and you're playing Monk, make sure you're on Monk. Go find any monster in the overworld. I like fighting the Onryos by the Evan High entrance because they're easy and reliable. Just go fight a monster on Monk, just punch it once, and then run in circle around the monster. And you're going to notice that the monster just doesn't attack you. That's because Monk is actually so fast. Like, your moves just like, I guess it's like a hidden bonus, right? Because you are like the fast job, the fast GCD job. You are just like I guess the way to explain it, you're just like, you're fast like the wind. So if you spin around the monster, it's just get dizzy, it's gonna get confused, and the monster is not going to be able to attack you. Now I know you think I'm kidding, but I'm not. Like, go test this right now. You'll see the monster doesn't attack you. It only works on Monk. So because of the fact that Monk's already strong, like, it's already really good because of all this, but then you can even make the monsters not attack you, and this works on the bosses, by the way. It's not that easy to like spin around the monsters, but because your rotation is very simple on Monk, you can get used to it, even if it's your first clear. So for this reason, man, Monk is like, it's a strong, right? It's like it's a melee for sure. So it can't kite properly, but its damage is really high, and even if you can't kite, you can effectively remove all the damage by running around the monster. So I think it's an amazing job. Like, I think Monk has really deserved to be there now. Maybe if they rework it again, it won't be so true, but it's right now in the spot it is. It's just like, it's just a really good first choice for your clear. Okay, so now talking about things that have been reworked, but not in a good way, let's talk about Dragoon. So Dragoon, they recently basically, they changed all the jumps, right? Like, they made all the jumps much faster. Now you don't have access to all the jumps at this level, but you have access to, I think, 3 or 4 jumps in PotD. 3? 4? 2? 3? Something like that, right? So they basically made the jumps much faster, and they also made some of them not move you anymore. That's a nerf, of course. The reason this is a nerf is because you can no longer abuse the iframes. So before, what you could do before is that whenever you would jump, the length of the animation was how long you were invulnerable to damage. So like, for example, if you're I never remember the names, but like, I don't know, if your jump move lasted 2 seconds, then you were invulnerable to damage for 2 seconds, which was great to avoid a lot of damage. But now, because they reduce, like, because they made them so fast, plus the server lag and everything, it's become basically impossible to rely on the iframes for Dragoon. This means Dragoon is kind of like, it used to have a way like Monk to avoid damage, but now it doesn't really have it. And because Dragoon wears a heavy armor, I think you can still get around physical monsters by just using Bloodbath properly. But you get destroyed by spells, right? Because the armor is just very weak to spells. Spells will do upward to, I think, 100% extra damage to you. So if you're ever fighting a magic monster, you can't even sustain yourself with Bloodbath. It's basically a weight chain required, right? And then you can't really abuse your iframes anymore to just avoid the damage. So that really brought down Dragoon. And Dragoon's damage is nothing like, you know, it's not bad, but it's not like really something worth it's not worth talking about, right? It's just okay. But now, because your survivability is quite bad, it's you know, like, I feel like it's probably subpar. Like, I'm looking, I was taking average initially. And in fact, I think my Dragoon used to be average as well in my other tier list, but it's definitely not on the level of Summoner. It's more of like a Warrior, I think. They're pretty different, but I feel like if you gave me Warrior and Dragoon, I would clear them in an equal amount of time. So I'll put it there. So let's keep going. Samurai. Samurai also reworked. I guess all the melees are kind of reworked, huh? But maybe not all of them, but these 3 did. So they removed Kaiten for Samurai, which was a massive damage nerf, like a huge damage nerf. Kaiten was a move if you weren't around. Like, it was before you would use your bait hitting move, you would basically spin your sword, and that would make your damage crazy because it's just a very cool looking move. But now they got rid of that, and now whenever you're doing your bait hitting moves like mid-array, you just don't look as cool anymore, which in turn made your damage way worse. In fact, I would even say Samurai feels like you're playing a tank nowadays. For its damage. But surprisingly, it's survivability. Man, that's a really rough word. Anyway, Third Eye is really strong on Samurai. It makes you basically into a tank, because you can just avoid so much damage with that skill. It's crazy. So like I said, it's kind of a Samurai is kind of like a tank now. Like, it feels like you're a tank. I wonder if Samurai was ever a tank in other Final Fantasies or something. Really makes you curious, but it just feels like you're playing a tank, because you're just mitigating all this damage with Third Eye, but then you're not really outputting much damage back because you just don't have that you just can't spin your sword anymore. This puts Sam in a weird position because it's kind of like ranking a tank that has like a great defensive move, but nothing else, and can't interrupt bots. So, you know, it's... I don't even know how I want to rank Samurai. I really wish they kept Kaden in, so it could have both the tank damage and the DPS damage, but now it's just not there, man. Like... But I will say, you definitely do a little more damage than Warrior, and you are more survivable, I would say. Like, you survive... it's more easy to survive on Samurai than Warrior, because you don't have a clunky move to use like Raw Intuition, right? It's pretty reliable to use Third Eye. It doesn't take much skill to use Third Eye at all. You just use it and you reap the benefits right away. So I think it's about average. Honestly, that feels similar to where I put it last time, but I think it deserves to be an average for now. I'll go over the list at the end, of course, like I said, so don't worry. Alright, the last two melees. So Reaper. Reaper is a weird one. So Reaper just doesn't have enough OGCDs to do the damage it needs to do, right? Like, yeah, it has like hard-hitting GCDs, but it just doesn't have good OGCDs, which makes its damage quite subpar. It doesn't really survive well. Like, it has a shield, but it's quite bad, right? It's not as good as Third Eye, not even close, so it's not even worth mentioning that move. So you have the portals, which lets you dash around. But the thing with the portals is every time you use the portal, because you're visiting a parallel world for like a few seconds, it increases the odds of a debuff and mimic happening for the next floor. So like, you can't really rely on the portals too much. If you do, you're just going to basically like bad luck your entire run. Like, your entire run is going to be bad luck, and Reaper just doesn't have the kind of damage or tools to deal with bad luck. So then you really have to use the portal as like a last resort thing. That's not good, right? Bloodbath is pointless on Reaper, as you already steal the blood of your enemy. So like, Bloodbath doesn't even heal you on Reaper. That's also another bad thing. And even worse is that 160 has no head to cut. 160, right? You know, the guy, the horseman without a head, the Dullahan? He doesn't have head to cut, so whenever you're doing 160 on Reaper, you actually have to resolution to just size the boss. Which means you're doing all this in an already subpar job, but then you also have to waste another resolution on 160 because there's no head to cut. It's kind of bad, dude. Like, that's a lot of downsides for a squishy melee that can't even properly utilize its dash. So like, you know, like maybe you get a run where you just find a ton of rages, a ton of serenities, and then you can mitigate the bad luck, but that's not your average run. Like, Reaper is really just not a viable job for a first layer, unfortunately. Alright, now the last melee. Ninja. Ninja has got good damage and good range abilities, sorry. Bloodbath. Talking about Bloodbath, I might as well mention it right now. Bloodbath doesn't work for most of your skills on Ninja, but then if you do a full shuriken build on Ninja, like if you just go full shuriken, your Bloodbath actually works for physical damage, so you can kind of offset it with you know, a min-max shuriken build. So other than that, Ninja, you know, it's the usual. You can... It's kind of like middle of the pack melee, you know, like it has good damage. It has like, well, you know, I'd say it's a little above average actually, because it has pretty good survivability. It has a CC, you know, be able to be doing range moves and melee moves, and you can switch between the two. Now, the thing about Ninja that makes me hesitate, though, because I would put Ninja in, like, amazing, maybe, strong, if it were for the hide working properly, but you may have noticed whenever you hide on Ninja, it just doesn't work sometimes, right? Like, sometimes you're walking by a crawler and just pops you out. And we figured out, finally, after all this time, that this happens because Gil, you know, your money, Gil actually has a weight in 14. And the more deal you have, the more you wait. And then the more you wait, the more likely you are to be seen by monsters when you walk by them. And then when you hide, you essentially... Like, the game treats it as walking. So basically, the richer you are, the less viable Ninja is. And so, you know, like, if you're really poor, You know, if you have only a few thousand deals, and Ninja could easily be amazing or strong. But because it's such a middle of the pack job, and like it's a bit better, and also I think most players have hundreds of millions on them. Like, I think most players at this point have 500 million plus deal on them. That makes Ninja like, you know, like I guess you could put your deal in your retainer before every run, but like who really has time for this, you know, like. And so a job that could be amazing and strong if you're really poor, just doesn't really. It's kind of like between decent and average, in my opinion, because of this huge downside, because you can't really properly use hide. I will put it in decent for now, but it's close to average. It's kind of close. So anyway, finally, we're with the last ones, the healers. So the healers, first one off. Now, obviously, White Mage cannot deal damage. So if you've ever done PF or DF, you know, you probably notice if you don't play White Mage yourself that White Mage just cannot do damage. It's just not in their kit. They don't have any button that does damage. Unfortunately, this means White Mage is kind of a like shot and case. You know, it's kind of a shot and dealt with case because you can deal damage, you cannot deal damage. You cannot beat the floors, and also you cannot like you can't beat the floor by healing enemies, or like there's no one to heal in a solo. You know, there's no friendly NPC to heal to carry you. So unfortunately, White Mage is awful because it. I mean, I'm sure it could be good, but because you can't deal damage on White Mage, you can't clear. So it's maybe I should even have made a tier that's like impossible below awful, but it. Like, if you ever manage to clear White Mage, I'll be the first one to look at your VOD, because it's just... Like, you just can't deal damage on it. Like, you can't get around that, you know? Like, because there's no way you have damage skills. Otherwise, why would people in my PS, you know, not do damage? It just wouldn't make sense. So, unfortunately, White Mage cannot be anywhere else. Scholar, also, from my PF and DF adventures, cannot deal damage. Fortunately, though, they added in last patch a skill for Scholar. It's an out of combat skill, and it has a 30-minute cooldown, but it's basically when you use it, it morphs you to Summoner. So essentially Scholar is a bit like Summoner, but there's a thing right now, and I don't know if it's a bug or it's like, I don't know if it's intended or not. Whenever you switch from Scholar to Summoner, you keep your fairy. Even if you do summons on your Summoner, you keep your fairy. Not sure if it's intended or not, like I said, but because of that, I mean, Scholar is straight up just, you know, an entire tier above. Now, because the cooldown of the ability is 30 minutes, you can't, like, you can't really, like, you know, like, be Summoner and then go to Scholar to heal yourself, because then you would have a 30-minute where you can't do damage. But you can, the fairy healing you is usually more than enough to make up for the lack of strength in Summoner's damage. Well, not that Summoner's damage is like bad, you know, but it elevates it. It lets you. How would I say? There's the fact that you can survive more easily means you can tackle like harder monsters, and that just helps. Just keep in mind, Summoner doesn't have a dash, so you just have to take a lot of things, even if you can run around. So yeah, I'd say Scholar is decent because of this. If it did not have the skill to switch to Summoner, you would definitely be awful, because you can't deal damage. Because in DF and PF, they just don't deal damage, so they can't deal damage in Deep Dungeon too. Luckily, you can switch, so that's great. So Sage, luckily Sage can deal damage. I don't know why they made it so that Sage and Astro can deal damage, but oh, it's just a weird way they implement things. So Sage, you know, healers don't have great damage. Well, healers that can do damage, they don't have great damage. So like Sage damage is it's technically you survive more easily on a healer because you can heal yourself, but then whenever you're healing yourself, you're not doing damage, and you're already doing bad damage, so it's not great, right? It's like playing a tank, but worse. There's one thing Sage has, it's Cardia, right? So whenever you put Cardia on yourself, you will heal yourself whenever you do combat damage. Like, that's okay, but it's not a big enough heal to really sustain yourself through the entire thing. Fortunately, Sage can Cardia each other's. So, like, you know, like, let's say you're doing a roulette or something, and you're like 4 Sage, you could Cardia, like, you know, each other's and just benefit from the heals. So, like, you know, 3 of them could Cardia one person, and then the all 3 of them would heal that one person. Now, where it gets kind of funky is that you can actually do this in PotD in a solo, but you have to all be in the same PotD, like, let's call it instances with an S. Like, as long as you are all sages and you are all in different instances, but like all in PotD, your Cardia buff will actually last. It will actually stay. So you basically, let's say, I don't know, let's say for example, you are 6 sage and you're all outside PotD, and then let's say all five of them Cardia you. Or like maybe you can do a different spread, right? Like you could have like 2 sage Cardia one guy, 2 sage Cardia another guy, but basically you all put Cardia on each other's, and then you all go in at the same time in your own separate runs. The Cardia is gonna remain, and basically every time every time the sage you're with in his own run does a damage chill, it's going to heal you in your own run. So if you prepare yourself and you have a few friends, or at least a few people willing to play Sage with you and do it for their own runs, you're effectively unkillable on Sage. Because if there's like, 5 buffs of Cardia on you and everyone's doing damage all the time, you're just not going to die from anything. So you can focus entirely on doing damage. And even though your damage is not great, the fact that you basically go on autopilot at this point is like, it kind of trivialized the whole plays, because all you're going to have to do is just a bit of managing your commanders, and that's it. Like the clear is pretty much guaranteed. Now you have to make sure though that everyone is fighting non-stop. So like for example, if your friends just take a break to, I don't know, look at some anime or something, well, you're gonna start benefiting from their heals because they're not fighting anymore, then you might die. So you have to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone is, going through the set, basically fighting non-stop, which also includes you. Unless you're selfish, you want to make sure you're fighting non-stop, except if you're leaving the floor, of course. But yeah, as long as you're willing to prepare, I have a few people to go in with, well, go in their own separate instance, and then everyone is just like doing their job of fighting non-stop. It is pretty much a guaranteed clear, although the damage is low. But because it's a guaranteed clear, like it's kind of tempting but amazing, but it's not amazing. It's just kind of like brain dead. So I'll put it strong, but it's, I would argue that if you're someone that has like big pressure, like you just experience a lot of pressure and you just don't trust your skills at all, Sage would probably be the most amazing job for you. But because its damage is still a bit low, I'll put it in strong. Okay, now lastly, Astro. As it turns out, we were playing Astro around this whole time. So it's no surprise Astral damage is really bad, right? Like just bad single target, bad AoE. You have to put a lot of effort into this job. Your heals are actually like okay, but the damage is just so low that it's just, you can't like, you just can't make up for that. Turns out though that the Astro auto attack, whenever you're slapping people with the card, is actually really strong. And so the thing you have to like start doing on Astro, the thing I realize is you're not meant to give yourself the purple cards, just the purple cards boost your, they boost basically your magical damage, let's call it like that. You're supposed to boost yourself with the blue cards. If you boost yourself with the blue cards, your auto attack damage is going to start doing ridiculous amounts of damage. And this will more than make up for your lack of single target damage you might be used to if you've run Astro quite a lot in the past. This will make you basically a melee DPS damage-wise. Yes, it's more effort because you still have to do the cards properly and you have to like funnel the blue cards and you gotta get your buffs and everything. But you basically become a melee with melee damage but way better survivability. Because, well, except Monk, right? Because Monk can just not get damage, but like you become basically a very survivable melee. And yes, the gameplay is difficult, but if you can execute it, it's not Sage, like it's not like Sage, but it's really strong, right? And I can't believe we didn't really think of doing this for so long, but I guess Astro shoots spells, so you would think that you're just gonna boost your spell damage and just go in with that, but turns out that card slap really packs a punch when you're buffing yourself. So I don't know, I'm kind of between a strong and decent. Like, I feel like it's between strong and decent. I feel like it's strong though, But then maybe okay, well, let me go. Sorry, let me go through the I'll reorder everything because that was the last jump. Blue Mage unfortunately is not a thing yet. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. Alright, anyway, so let's just go through everything, make sure everything is properly ranked. So Machinist, would I say Machinist is as good as Black Mage to clear? Yeah, I would say they're both pretty equal. Would I say Monk and Black Mage are equal? Yeah, I would say they're really strong. Both of them are amazing. I would say they're pretty close. Like maybe a little more effort for playing Monk. But like if you're spinning around the monsters, yeah, but like the rotation is kind of simple. I just say it kind of offset each other. So I think they're both amazing. Would I say Monk? So see, I think Sage I'll boot it in amazing because like yes, I said the damage is not as good, but then I would assume you have friends because everyone has friends, and like if you've got just a few friends, it should be just a joke to do the whole thing. As long as you're coordinated. So I'd say it's amazing, right? Like if you're playing Sage alone, then it's more like, I don't know, like average maybe. But if you're playing with friends, it's easy amazing. So I'll put it there because everyone has friends. Would I say Machinist is better than Dancer at Bard? Yeah, because like they've got the new thing on 180 that really trivialize it, but they still have lower damage, even though Dancer has pretty good AoEs. And is able to kite like infinite monsters. I'd say they deserve to be there. Red Mage, like the fact that you can hard cast for 5 seconds for extreme damage, definitely. But then you gotta deal with bugs. I think it's still in strong. Gunbreaker is just insane, just a nuts, completely nuts. I don't think it deserves to be an amazing though. Like Black Mage, Monk, Sage, and Machinist are a tier of their own, so I don't think it should be. I don't think it should go higher. Astro compared to Gunbreaker. Yeah. I mean, it's. I guess it's more fair to compare it to a melee DPS. Like, would I say it's weaker than Monk? Yeah. But would I say it's stronger than Ninja? Yeah. So I think it deserves to be there. And I'm not too worried about the ones at the bottom, though. Like, White Mage can't attack, so of course it's awful. Basically impossible. Dark Knight is really bad. So is Reaper because of the whole luck thing. And then the resolution you gotta use. Dragoon. Warrior is really bad, yeah. Can't spin the sword anymore. Ninja, the weight of gold. Okay, I think everything looks right to me. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way this looks. So yeah, this is my new PotD tier list, updated for basically before the Dawntrail. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and look forward to the rest of these. See you guys.